What is up, FXLayer here for Thomann synthesizers, and I couldn't be more excited about what I'm going to share with you today. Because if you know any of my recent videos, you know that I'm on a constant quest basically to perfect my polyphonic analog synth sounds, like these CS80 type deep pads and soundscapes. And I think I might have actually finally cracked the code, at least to my own subjective standard. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. And the good news is that you're not actually going to have to spend like 4 grand on a Deckards Dream, although you can, of course. But the basic principles are going to apply to a whole lot of synths, and it's also going to work in a whole lot of VSTs. But as a very first stop, let's still have a little look at the Deckards Dream to see what we're aiming for. Alright, here we go with the Deckards Dream MK II, which I'm using as a reference. Why? Because in my opinion it's the definitive analog polyphonic synth sound. This is in my opinion the most desirable polysynth of all time. Obviously it's a replica actually of the Yamaha CS80, but this is going to cost you upwards of 100 grand and likely it's going to be broken every 2 weeks. So this is in my opinion the definitive version of the CS80 because it replicates the sound beautifully, has lovely polyphonic aftertouch capabilities and all that stuff. But let's have a listen first how it sounds. Bam! This is exactly everything I want from a polyphonic synth sound. I basically just got this, I turned it on, I tweaked for 2 minutes or so, then it sounded like this, I hit save, and I never created a second sound ever again. I basically just changed envelope settings and filter envelope settings to my needs, but this is basically just the sound of it. And it's also not super versatile, because obviously you can create different sounds, but this is basically, I guess, the essential aesthetic that you're gonna wanna aim for if you buy one of these. So let's have a tiny look at the layout, but if you want to know every little detail, obviously you check out the loop hop video rather than my videos. Anyways, first just have a look at this column here, because actually the whole layout is basically just this twice, and then some additional settings that we're going to ignore for now. So what do we have here? We have an LFO for pulse width modulation. We have a square wave and a saw wave that we can just turn on and off, no volumes. And then we have a little noise here. And then obviously filter envelope, volume envelope, and some additional filter settings, and then all of this twice. And then here we have a mix knob. So now we are just listening to this layer. Now we're just listening to this layer. And now 50-50 roughly. And this is where the magic happens, yeah? When you have these two sounds which are slightly detuned, yeah? I think the second one here I tuned a bit up. So it's slightly detuned. Creating some beautiful movement in here. And then also another difference is that the settings on the pulse width modulation is a tiny bit different on each layer. So these two layers interact in such a beautiful way. So naturally I was wondering, what is at the essence of this aesthetic? Is it something to do with the mysterious high-quality components of this luxurious boutique synthesizer? Or is it actually just plainly this combination of particular waveforms being modulated in a certain way, being layered in a certain way? So naturally I tried basically to create this exact layout in a VST, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised with the result. So let's check it out. Alright, here we go. This is Super 8 by Native Instruments. Fairly simple VST to simulate analog type polyphonic synths. Anyways, let's first have a little look at this Ableton project that I prepared, because here I did a little MIDI arrangement already. Just layering a couple versions of this. Let's have a look at the individual sounds first. This is a bass line. It's actually not not made with Super 8, but with just the Ableton internal synth called Analog. Just a super simple bass line with 2 detuned saw oscillators. So this is just one of them on its own. There's the other one, and then both together. Yeah, typical detuned saw bass line. And now we're gonna actually hear Super 8, and this is what it sounds like. With reverb. And here's a second layer with some higher notes. And now with the bass line. You get the idea. I think it sounds absolutely lovely. And now what we're going to do is create the patch from scratch again here on this additional channel. Let's have a look how it sounds right now. All right, already sounds lovely. Obviously we have some reverb on here and RC20 on the reverb. However, let's just close the instance of the plugin and reload it again to get the basic sound. This is what you're gonna get when you open the synth. All right, so what do we have here? First of all, let's have a look at the layout. There's a similarity that you're gonna notice with the Deckards Dream in that we can create 2 instances of a saw wave and a square wave. Here's oscillator 1, which is now a combination of saw wave and square wave because I turned down these. And the same goes for the second oscillator, which we can control individually. Then here we have a filter section, filter envelope, amp envelope, and here LFO1 and LFO2. And that's all we need basically. So let's first have a listen just to the oscillator 1. All right. This is with the reverb here, so the very first thing obviously is to create a pad-like envelope. So a lot of attack, a lot of decay, low sustain, and a fair bit of release. And now it should sound pad-like. Oh, even more envelope attack and decrease the envelope amount here. And now it should sound pad-like. Yes. However, it doesn't sound like a Deckards Dream yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to simulate it by adding some pulse width modulation. For that, we're going to use LFO1 here, mod 1, for the first oscillator. It's mapped here already. And then we're going to use mod 2 as an LFO for the second oscillator. These little knobs here, as you can see visualized, they change the wave shape. So this is going to be our pulse width modulation. So let's select the amount. Maybe let's say that the first oscillator is going to be modulated by an amount of 54. And it's important that both of them are the same amount. And if we, for example, here select a different amount for the second one, it's also important, again, that these two are the same, because on the Deckards Dream, one oscillator would share an LFO and you would have no control over applying it differently to each waveform. So this is why I'm gonna have the exact same setting. Now, obviously, this is too quick of a movement now. So we're gonna decrease the LFO rate here. And now we're gonna listen to the second one. here you just have to basically fiddle around a bit until you like the way the two oscillators interact. So let's listen to both of them together. Lovely already. You can of course also here manipulate the initial wave form basically. So this way the modulation is going to start from a different point. This is also going to be one more interesting component to find the perfect sweet spot. Now the last thing that's missing, of course, is detuning the oscillators. So this one's going to be fine-tuned a bit down and this one's going to fine-tuned a bit up. Lovely. I think now I would like to decrease the amount here of the LFO a bit. Yeah, 6/9 is definitely the way to go. And here also 6/9. Perfect. And lastly, maybe we can change this sub-oscillator here into a noise source to add some white noise. Alright, amazing. And up here we have some beautiful stuff. This one's called the drift. And it's basically going to make the oscillators drift apart. So just imprecision basically is like simulating, I think what the Deckards Dream might do automatically on a tiny scale to have tiny alterations in the pitch of the oscillators. So if I would crank this up a lot, you're going to hear it. It's still even subtle if you put it at 100%, but this just adds a little more complexity and makes it a bit more organic. And then lastly here, glide is gonna affect the beginning of the note. Lovely. Now maybe let's make it a bit darker by closing the filter a bit. Yeah, and then obviously you can still work on the exact settings of the pulse width modulation until you find your perfect sweet spot that you like, but this sounds good for me. And I think even when you crank up the filter, it still sounds super lovely. And now the amazing thing is that we can use automations on this. So we have basically a Deckards Dream sound with the amazing opportunities of automations. So here I have just two instances, as I already showed you, just with the basic steady filter automation to basically just over the course of 2 minutes or 1 minute in this case, open up the filter and thereby increase the energy. Yeah, which is something that would require a lot more pre-planning and be a lot less flexible if you would want to do this with the Deckards Dream. Alright, so lastly, to demonstrate that you don't need this particular plugin, I also actually recreate the sound on my Prophet Rev 2. And I'm pretty sure you can get your hands on some polysynth or some VST that's going to allow you to layer 2 layers of a combination of a saw wave and a square wave being modulated by an LFO, because that's effectively everything you need. And Super 8, I guess because it's inspired by vintage polysynths and therefore it has to be inspired to some degree by the Yamaha CS80, features like the drift here and this whole layout maybe is not a coincidence. But yeah, anyways, let's lastly check out what I did on the Prophet Rev 2. And this is what it sounds like. Which is absolutely insane. I never ever made it sound that beautiful before I got the Deckards Dream. Never ever managed to create a sound like this. But now that I basically just tried to copy the layout of the Deckards Dream, I basically was able to reproduce it to my satisfaction. So I guess I hopefully have demonstrated that you can create it with a lot of different options, and maybe you already have some sort of polysynth or VST or whatever that allows you to actually create this exact layout. How did I do it here? Let's just run through it again very quickly. The Prophet has a similarity with the Deckards Dream in that it allows you to create two separate layers. And normally you would just work with all of these knobs, create a patch, and then to open the second layer, you just hit this button here, edit layer B, and now bam, all of the buttons now all of the poties and buttons now control a distinct second layer, and you can layer them together. So what did I do? On both layers I used a square wave and saw wave being modulated by the same LFO for pulse width modulation. Added some tiny bit of noise, added some pad like filter envelope and amp envelope. Then did the exact same thing for layer 2, but with the tiny bit different settings for the modulation of the pulse width. And one layer is slightly detuned up and one layer is slightly detuned down. And then together it sounds like this. Lovely. All right, that's it from my side for today. In case you have any questions, let me know in the comments as usual, and I'm going to try and get back to you ASAP. Apart from that, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Peace out.